It's KC 101, your hometown country station, and one of my favorite programs. It's Saturday with Seniors, and today, Jim Paxson joining us in our studio. Jim, good morning. How are you?
Good morning to you.
Great to have you here.
Thank you for the invitation.
So how old are you, Jim? I can't just ask anybody that, but because you're on the show, it's part of the requirement.
February, I turned 83.
83 years old in February. Well, congratulations. And how many of those years did you live in Tioga County?
I moved here in 1952, so you do the math.
So about 70 of those years, it looks like. So where were you born 13 years before you moved here?
I was born in Scranton, and actually Wellsboro is my seventh home. We moved quite frequently in our younger years. Born in Scranton and moved to Factoryville, and then Newton, New Jersey, Asbury Park, New Jersey, Fleetwood, Pennsylvania, Bowmansville, Pennsylvania, and then Wellsboro.
You've got quite a memory. As you're saying that, I'm counting. I've actually lived in 7 places before I lived in Tioga County, too, and took 7 to find the right place. I guess that's the magic number.
Yes.
So what did your parents do? What were the very first jobs that they had?
Dad had many different jobs, but mainly he worked for McCrory's and Newberry's 5 and 10s. And he also sold thread and yarn on the road. But the opening at Mosier's 5 and 10, Mr. Mosier was looking for a manager, and one of his salesmen was a friend of ours in Fleetwood, and he mentioned that. So Dad came up, and he happened to come up doe season weekend. And he said,
which is a big event now,
the traffic. He said, this has got to be a good place to be. And so job is what brought us to town.
So your dad moved here, and then did you start working in your dad's store pretty shortly after that you moved here?
Pretty shortly afterwards, yes. I was 15, and I looked up, I still have my first pay envelope. I was making 40 cents an hour.
40 cents an hour, and people are complaining out there. What was the price of gas back then, though?
Yeah, I remember saying, going to the gas station, give me $1 worth.
And it actually ran for more than a glitch there. Yeah. Wow. So you started at $40 an hour at 15 years old. You were a stock 40 cents. Sorry, I missed 40 cents. That's more. You brought home your whopping paycheck of whatever, $1 something a week, a couple dollars a week. Wow. And were you in school full time then at this point?
At that time, yes. I had to get work papers in order to, at that age.
Where were you going to school? Tell me about your early schools in Tioga County.
Well, it was in Wellsboro. Rockwell Butler at the time was the junior, senior high school. And I remember the first day going into class. Boys were sitting outside on the wall, and I had to go through the gauntlet as I viewed it.
Worried that you're going to be stuffed into a locker.
Yeah.
We've certainly come a long ways with teaching kids not to haze, not to pick on each other, and but so this is before those days.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't bad, but it just had that feel.
So how did you like school? What was your favorite subject?
Well, I did like school. Wasn't real good at it. I think history and geography, those type of classes I enjoyed.
So if I asked you when you were at that age, 12, 14 years old, what do you think you're going to be doing for a job when you grow up? What would you have said?
A painter.
A painter?
Yes. On my mother's side, her dad and her brother were painters in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And in summers, I would go be with them and do some painting, and I really enjoyed that. The drawback was I don't like heights.
There are ladders involved with a lot of painting. So tell me about with school there. When kids got in trouble in school, nowadays teachers just go, what do we do? What did teachers do back then?
Well, we got called to the principal's office quite often.
That was serious when you heard your name come over the announcements.
Right. Yes. And I remember one instance, we had our senior class play rehearsal, and after that, we decided we weren't going to go back into class. And one of our favorite teachers was sick over in Knoxville. So I think there was 5 or 6 of us got in a car and went to visit her. And we got back in time for closing. However, the office called for one of the fellows that was with us, and they couldn't find him. That's how we got caught. And our punishment was picking up rocks off the field, the new high school, which is now replaced with the current high school. We had no athletic field, and we had to, I don't know how many hours we spent picking rocks up
with a ball and chain on your foot, probably too, so you wouldn't run again this time. What, did they have the paddle when you were in school in Rock Butler then? Was that a common, the ruler on the knuckles, or not so much when you're
Yeah, I don't really recall that type at all, but they let you know that when you...
And probably let your parents know too, which is just as scary at that age, I would think. So what was your first car? Do you remember what it cost? Any stories about that?
Well, it was a Plymouth, and some of the old timers may remember the Candy Kitchen. And Leona worked there. The Zarbus brothers had the Candy Kitchen, and Leona was a friend. And I bought her car from, I can't remember the dealer's name right now, but anyhow, he brought it around at the back alley to show us, me and my dad, and it was dirty. My dad told him to take it back, wash it, and then bring it back. And then my second car was a Buick.
Do you remember what the cars cost? I'm guessing under $100 at the time, probably.
No, I don't really recall.
You mentioned the Candy Kitchen. Was that behind Dunham's, or was that next to Paxson's 5 and Dime?
That was next to Paxson's 5 and 10, the lower end of Main Street.
Towards the diner direction?
Toward the diner, yes. Yep. The original 5 and 10 was the middle part of what is now Timeless, etc. The Market Basket grocery store was up towards the sporting goods store. The 5 and 10 was the middle, and Candy Kitchen was the lower part. And we eventually expanded both ways.
Wow. And I remember you were telling me some about the Candy Kitchen, how popular that was, and some of the candy that they made there, which is now the Main Street Olive Company is there now.
Correct. Yes. The Zarbus brothers made their own candy and had a famous fudge recipe. Hot fudge sundaes were very popular.
Zarbus sounds like a circus name or something, like Zorro or something.
They were Greek.
Yeah. And entertainers too, I understand. Well, that's really neat. So tell me some more about the 5 and Dime store that your dad had. He purchased it when he first came to town?
No. We managed it for a number of years, and then when Mr. Mosier was ready to sell, we bought it. At that time, I was still in school, and I had to take out a loan to help purchase it.
Wow.
I remember.
Yeah.
So then subsequently, I bought it from my dad, and it has an interesting history. The Mosiers and Paxsons, father and son of the Mosiers, who started it in 1907, and then two owners of Paxson. So over the 90-year history, just had 4 owners.
Wow.
2 families.
And that was started just a couple of years after Dunham's. That was one of the oldest in-town businesses that your family was involved with.
Yes. Very
interesting. So growing up, did you have a phone and electric and an outhouse, or you lived in town and you had all those amenities?
Well, we lived in town. I remember I walked to school a lot, and I also rode my bicycle. I had a morning paper route, and so I delivered the papers on my bicycle and then ended up at school.
You say morning. Was this a daily paper that was delivered in Wellsboro?
This was a daily paper from Williamsport.
There was that many customers reading the Williamsport paper back then. Wow. We're going to be right back. It is Saturday with Seniors. Stick around for part 2. Jim Paxson joining us here on